Hey everybody, I'm francapitanelli. I went to these shows this past week on Wednesday and Thursday. They were the Blackcrowes tribute to REM, which were both benefit shows for Planned Parenthood. There was one in Athens at the 40 Watt and one in Atlanta at the Roxy. Now the 40 Watt, that's kind of like the epicenter of the Athens music scene, and definitely with the start of REM, it's all right there in that room. So we were totally excited about going to see these shows, especially the one in Athens, because that's where it all started. But Athens and Atlanta, even though they're only an hour and 15 minutes apart, there's kind of a divide between the two cities as far as the music scene goes. A little bit of a competition thing, but not much, but you can feel it just in that hour and 15 drive. There would be none of that on these evenings. Everybody was very happy to be there, and we started our trip off. It was a very rainy day and cold. Oh man, and as the day went on, it just got rainier and colder and more of a challenge. Trying to get everything set up for our tickets, our passes. There was a long line outside of the 40 Watt, and in order to get the passes, I went and got one of them while a friend of mine was parking, and I ended up standing in the rain for a while. This guy standing right over here with his back to us, that's my friend Andrew Kyler. He saw me standing out in the rain, and he was kind enough to bring me an umbrella, because he knew, well, I couldn't just come in right yet. I was waiting on my friend who was parking the car, who conveniently shut his phone off right at the most crucial time. He won't be watching this because he's got his phone off. But he came to my rescue and brought me an umbrella, which really saved me. I would have just been so wet for the rest of the show. And man, it was cold. So thank you, Andrew.
Stipe here, god damn it. He sprained his foot, so he couldn't do the song. I'm gonna massacre it.
That's John Cameron Mitchell. He wrote Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and he was doing a bunch of the vocals for the night, and he was just explaining there how Michael Stipe sprained his ankle and wasn't going to be able to perform, which none of us really knew that they were going to be doing that anyway, or had anticipated. We knew some members of REM would be there, but the likelihood of the four of them getting up on stage was kind of a long shot. So I wasn't getting my hopes up. But right here, holding this bass, that's my buddy Sven Pippian, one of my longest, oldest, closest friends. He needed a Rickenbacker for this show, and I was like, well, you can play my Rick. And boy, let me tell you, that guitar couldn't have been happier to get out of the closet and into Sven's hands to play these songs. There's fredarmisen. He's gonna sing Gardening at Night. And I was really wishing that he was gonna play the drums, because he's an excellent drummer. And I thought maybe he would sneak in for one of those songs, but he did not. But I always want more fredarmisen wherever I go, but it wasn't my place to say. But he sang great, and he was super nice, which is always good. That's Mitcheaster from the Tragically Hip. This guy is super cool, and he owned it up there. He produced Chronictown and I believe Reckoning, a few of the first REM albums. So of course there's Rich Robinson. He organized this whole thing. He and Sven on the bass are the two members of the Black Crowes that were present that night at the 40 watt. On the next night, Chris Robinson showed up and did his thing, and he was amazing. We'll get to that here in a second. A lot of you may know that the Black Crowes, they started out as Mr. Crow's Garden, and they were basically a REM cover band and morphed into the Black Crowes. So this goes way back for them as one of their hugest influences of starting a band and helping them get started. REM helped all these bands. They paved the way for all these bands that we're about to see. That's Jeff Sullivan on the bongos there. He was in Driving and Crying back in their prime heyday.
Speaking of old fuckers, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Athens, please welcome Elfpower.
This is Elfpower. They started up in the 90s and they have been going ever since, and they are Athens stalwarts. They've just been rock solid for so many years, plugging away and doing their thing. But they play one of my favorite songs, maybe my favorite REM song, Begin to Begin, and they did a great job. It's always good to see them. This is the Pylon Reenactment Society, formerly known as Pylon. They were very involved in the early Athens music scene and were coming up at the same time as REM and the B-52s. So that's, of course, Peterbuck and Lennykaye, two legends standing next to each other on stage. And everybody was so excited to see them. I mean, nobody could believe that Lennykaye was there. But Peterbuck, he's just the coolest, the epitome of cool. Every time I looked over at him, I was just like, man, he just has that thing that you want in a guitar player. He's got a very relaxed power to him. And I was surprised they didn't give him like a big introduction at this show. Maybe he didn't want that, but I was expecting somebody to say, Peterbuck! But he kind of just walked up there quietly, did his thing. He kept coming back on and off the stage to play, and everybody was in awe of him. Kevnkinney with the black baseball hat on. He's from Driving and Crying. He's the singer, and he is an Atlanta legend, as well as the rest of the country too, I'm sure, but especially here. Driving and Crying are a huge Atlanta band. Just a prolific songwriter, and can't say enough about him, how great he is. So there's Mike Mills on the bass, along with Steve Wynn from the Dream Syndicate, and of course Pete Buck. You know, they all have a band side project called the Baseball Project. This is like when we've got two of the members of REM up there, and at this show, at the 40 Watt, all four members were there at one point. You know, seeing Bill Berry walking around in our little guest area. And at one point, Michael Stipe showed up. I guess he had hurt his ankle and he had a cane. We were thinking for a second, this is gonna happen. That would not be the case for this night as much as we wanted it to be, but everything was still great. There was just that little hope that maybe at the end they were gonna get up as a four-piece. We'll have to wait for the next time. This is the Indigo Girls from Decatur, Georgia. At the Roxy, the Indigo Girls did not make it for that one. And in their place was Puddles the Clown, also known as Mike Geyer. He's also another Atlanta favorite hero, and he's got this huge booming voice, known for doing these Christmas shows and non-Christmas shows. He came up to sing What Child Is This? And hopefully didn't give everyone nightmares.
What child is this?
That's davidryanharris. He's also a local hero. He was in a band called Follow For Now back in the day. And I gotta tell you, he slayed both nights. I mean, everybody was great across the board. On both nights, Everybody Hurts kind of was the showstopper. You know, if I didn't mention somebody, I'm sorry, there's a lot of people in the show. I'm trying to hit all the bases and not make this a 2-hour video. And there's also a guy standing next to me who was just dancing his butt off, and he kept wanting us to dance, but we weren't going to do that. But we did become friends. Everybody knows who that is. You can't hear that voice and not know who it is. That's dariusrucker. And I was excited to see that he was going to be part of this show because he and I have something in common. We're both lifelong, die-hard Miami Dolphins fans.
I'm such a baby 'cause the Dolphins make me cry.
And when I was watching the game this last weekend, dariusrucker did a lead-in to the Sunday night football game that the Dolphins were playing against the Chargers. And in there, he was talking about how they always let us down. And I was like, man, he is speaking right to me. You never know how these things are going to turn out if you're going to try and walk up to somebody who's a huge star like that and start talking about football. So on the second night, I was standing in my little spot there at the side of the stage, and all of a sudden I look over, he's standing right next to me.
Hey Darius, I loved your lead-in to the Dolphins game the other night.
He was like,
Oh man, and then they got their ass kicked. You a Dolphins fan?
Yep,
What's your name?
I said,
my name's Fran.
I'm Darius.
and he starts telling me this story about having dinner with Dan Marino. And he's going into this whole story, and I'm like, wow, yeah, we're having a conversation. And right at the end of it, he says, I gotta go. And he walks right on stage. Roxy is a lot bigger than the 40 watt. It's probably like 5 times more the capacity. So it wasn't as quaint of a show, but we knew that coming into it. So that's Barrett Martin on the drums. He was in the Screaming Trees, and him and Pete Buck had another band called Tuatara. So there's Chris Robinson. You know, when he shows up, he's going to bring the house down. He wasn't there on the first night. All of a sudden, he was on stage. And I was like, oh, there he is. And he does this song, The Velvet Underground, Pale Blue Eyes, and he just crushes it.
Sometimes I feel so sad. Sometimes I feel so happy. Mostly it just makes me mad. Baby, you just make me mad.
nights they ended with September Girls by Big Star. There's a lot of connections to Big Star within this group of people, especially with Mike Mills. He just got done doing a Big Star tour. Of course, at the end of the night, you got this fabulous group picture.
All right, Scott, are we good?
Right footy pants.
All right, ready to go. All right, please, ready to land? All right, first one, running to the inside. I know people in your face. Here we go.
Butcher, come on, Butcher.
And that was my trip to see the two REM tribute shows put on by the Black Crowes to benefit Planned Parenthood. So thanks for checking it out. My name is Francapitanelli. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button. Francapitanelli, totally into the sound, totallyintothesound.com.
And we'll see you next time.